Good morning and welcome to Our Town here on Hometown Radio, 103.7 FM and 1340 WAGN. I'm Ken Connors. It's a look back and a look ahead. Today I'm getting a check of the City of Menominee's past accomplishments from over the last year or so, and even looking forward to the productive year ahead for Menominee. It's all part of Menominee Mayor Gene Stegeman's State of the City address. Mayor Stegeman is in studio with us here this morning to do her full State of the City address for our listeners. Without further ado, want to welcome Mayor Stegeman to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
inviting me.
When you're ready, feel free to start your address there, Mayor.
Great. Thank you. Good morning. With this State of the City address, I intend to highlight the many accomplishments achieved over the last year. Some of these are more obvious to our community than others, but all are of importance and worthy of note. I would like to begin with the finalization of the long overdue water rate study, which was completed in November. This has been a topic of discussion citywide. The City of Menominee was unacceptably losing money for the last 2 years in our water and wastewater proprietary funds. There had not been an increase for 5 years, although expenses continued to rise. Coleman Engineering was hired to complete this task and did so in a timely, professional, and thorough manner. There were inquiries as to why this had to be done by an outside engineering firm and not accomplished in-house. That's a fair question, and the answer is that it is because this issue is very complex and is not as simple as dividing the expenses incurred by the number of accounts. In fact, future interest rates the city would be charged on any borrowing would be impacted by the importance of expertly reviewing and implementing this study. The city has to balance the income and expense in such a way as to cover our fixed cost, build a reasonable fund for infrastructure, and not unduly burden our citizens. There is no question that incremental increases over the past few years would have been the preferable way to handle this, but staff changes within City Hall unfortunately did not allow this to become a reality. There is no blame to assess, and it is my hope that our citizens understand that this increase was an absolute necessity. The fact that it is done is a major accomplishment. A new 5-year contract with Infrastructure Alternatives for the operation of our water and wastewater plants is now in place. Sometimes the question is asked, why don't we do this ourselves? That's a fair question as well, but in a cost-benefit analysis, contracting with Infrastructure Alternatives is the best decision for the city when all factors are taken into account. There was a bid process adhered to, with Infrastructure Alternatives presenting the lowest bid. There will be a contractual increase of 1.5% each year, thereby stabilizing the expense for the city and for budgeting purposes. We are in the beginning stages of the 2015-16 annual budget, where the Finance Committee will review the capital improvement plan and the operating budget department by department, line by line. This is time-consuming for everyone, but well worth the effort. By carefully crafting a budget and adhering to it, over the last year we have been able to replace a snowplow that was over 10 years old, replace a fire rescue boat that was over 35 years old, replace a street department grader to both groom alleys and plow snow, replace 2 police vehicles, purchase a new dump truck and a new pickup truck for the Department of Public Works, and replace the aging fire department truck. There have been numerous smaller capital improvements as well, including repair to our tennis courts at Water Tower Park, installation of handicap accessible doors at City Hall, and the purchase of new radios for the police department. We have made all of these improvements, increasing the fund balance to approximately $2,850,000. This is the 4th consecutive year of increases in both the general fund balance and unassigned fund balance. Dedicated effort by everyone involved makes this possible, and the citizens of Menominee are better served with these improvements. The City of Menominee was also able to repair or replace over 4 miles of city streets through the use of chip sealing, which lengthens the life of a street, asphalt reconstruction, or complete replacement, including infrastructure, as in the case of 14th Avenue. Now, we are very aware that many citizens are anxiously awaiting the second phase of 14th Avenue to begin, but that is dependent not on desire by city leaders, but on the funding for the underground improvements. One accomplishment that is especially important in the area of road improvement was the decision by the council to assist the school district in providing a loading zone for the buses at Blush Intermediate School along 14th Avenue. The spirit of cooperation was alive and well as both the city and Menominee area public schools saw the need to protect our children by creating an uncongested pickup and drop-off area. Now, both 11th Avenue and 14th Avenue are utilized for this purpose. The expense was split between the two entities involved, and everyone is, once again, better served. The safety of our children was further ensured through the work of Police Chief Bob Biles' successful grant application for security cameras in our schools. In other cooperative efforts between the city and the school district, the Recreation Department continues to assist in providing a myriad of programs for our young people. Among these programs are Hornets and Pop Warner football, as well as youth soccer, youth hockey, and Babe Ruth baseball. Our Recreation Department also has a wide variety of sports camps for boys and girls, basketball, and family fun nights. Our young people are not the only segment served by the Recreation Department, however, as they are also responsible for River Park Campground. River Park is an asset whose popularity continues to grow with campers. I've witnessed this through many positive letters, phone calls I have received on this subject. In other popular developments, we had a ribbon cutting for Lloyd House 1. And I will repeat my comments made during Governor Snyder's visit. This project is a shining example of what can be done when there is cooperation between the city, the state, and private enterprise. The Lloyd House project was a resounding success, and we can look forward to the rehabilitation of the Oddfellows building to commence in the late spring of this year. To round out the facelift of the entire block, the Lloyd Theater is being repurposed by iButhentic and will bring an improved appearance and value to the area. In other expansions of business, Anchor Coupling continues to move forward with their expansion at the Industrial Park. Enstrom Helicopter is finalizing their enlargement as well. The L.E. Jones expansion plans continue to progress with the city's help in planned improvements to 11th Street. The growth and development of these businesses ensures the future success of our city and her residents. Additionally, the building inspector has reported permit fees of $18,700. This represents 121 projects with approximately $3 million in construction costs. In other matters of good news, again this year, the Michigan Municipal League Liability and Property Pool and Workmen's Compensation Fund, on whose board I continue to serve, has voted to return dividends to the members. This distribution should result in payment of approximately $14,000 to the City of Menominee. Also, the governor has announced a one-time payment of state funds to cities under Public Act 252 of 2014, payable to Act 51 eligible road agencies. The payments to the City of Menominee will be distributed in 4 installments, totaling $59,847. These funds can be used for major or local streets. And finally, through a review of services and fees, the city manager has whittled more than $30,000 from the city's budget on an annual basis. We have approved a new solid waste contract that will provide greater service for our citizens and save the city money as well. In summary, the City of Menominee continues to undergo improvement and achieve success. We take care of our assets, whether it is a project as large as a city street or as small as Phase 1 in the replacement of carpet at Spee's Library. Whether it is as noticeable as the North Pier Light Station or as humble as the re-roofing of the bathhouse at River Park, I would respectfully ask that we as a community take note of our accomplishments and remember that Menominee always continues to move forward.
Menominee Mayor Gene Stegeman's annual State of the City address here, taking a look back at 2014 and a look ahead at 2015. I've got more with the Menominee Mayor. When we come back here on Our Town, you've got it on Hometown Radio 103.7 FM and 1340 WAGN. Stick around. Welcome back to Our Town. I'm Ken Connors. I'm joined today by Menominee Mayor Gene Stegeman. She just gave her State of the City address here and want to look a little bit more in depth at a few of the topics that Mayor Stegeman was talking about in her speech. One of the big things you hit on right away there, Mayor Stegeman, was, of course, the water rates. We had the rate increase here for Menominee residents, businesses, just went into effect, on January. Folks finally started noticing those new rates showing up on their bills, it looked like.
Yes, and it would have been maybe helpful to people had we sent out a postcard as soon as council approved the rates, letting everybody know that they would receive the higher bill in January. I received several calls. All of the phone calls were very civil, just a little confused as to why, when it became effective January 1st, that they were seeing the greater bill in January. I think that was a little bit of miscommunication, and we should have perhaps sent out a card in November after council passed it saying you will see the increase effective January 1st, and that will be your new larger bill.
Besides that, though, it seems to me as we were going through the whole process of doing this new rate for the water here in the city, first off, it's a familiar topic because I believe we talked about it a little bit last year when you were in here doing your State of the City speech.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. This was truly past due. Our audits showed that we'd lost money 2 years in a row, and last year money of significance. And we cannot fix infrastructure under streets while losing money.
It didn't seem like during this whole process, especially as we got a little bit closer to the final approval of those new wastewater rates, folks seemed to understand what was going on. I'm sure they weren't necessarily entirely happy with the jump that they were going to see there, but it seemed like we didn't see too much blowback, at least from what I was seeing at those meetings, at the city meetings.
No, I think people were very understanding. They see the prices go up at the grocery store. Prices until recently had been climbing at the gas pump. It was not a surprise that 5 years of flat rates would eventually result in an increase. What I am fairly proud of is that our water department, and in conjunction with the city, is so well run that we were able to achieve the necessary increase as determined by Coleman Engineering, yet we remain under other communities who draw water in a similar way to Menominee. Escanaba, Gladstone, and Manistee all draw surface water as we do. And so to say that we remain after the increase at a lower rate than any of these other municipalities goes to show how carefully we manage things.
Another thing that's happened here in regards to some of the city services is Menominee did approve that new garbage pickup contract here, again, going with Waste Management. It sounds like the city's pretty happy with the deal that they got here with Waste Management this time around.
Yes, there's not going to be a large increase in expense to our citizens. We have negotiated curbside pickup for larger things that people want to dispose of, which will eliminate the need for the massive spring cleanup. We will still do the brush pickup, of course, but spring cleanup will be a savings maybe in the neighborhood of $40,000, and not having all this stuff piled all over the place. If you have something that you need to get rid of, a small piece of furniture, that sort of thing, there will be a designated time when you can place that curbside and Waste Management will pick it up. Of course, we still will not pick up things that we didn't in the past: construction materials, white goods, refrigerators, microwaves, television sets, but then tires. But then we never did pick those things up.
And you did mention, too, it sounds like a decent amount of savings for the city. I'm sure folks are wondering, is that going to get passed on to the regular resident here in Menominee? Is that going to be something that's going to be addressed, let's say, come budget time? I'm wondering if you have any insight on that.
Nothing that I would like to allude to right now by way of any promise. We always are looking for ways to lessen the burden on folks here in the city. If there is a way to do that, I'm sure the Finance Committee and the Council will find a way. I know that the water bill and the garbage all in one bill is a hardship.
And as you mentioned there, too, of course, we are getting into that budgeting time, too, for the city. And that takes a few months here coming up. It's really just sort of the onset of the whole budget season for Menominee. I'm just curious, anything in your mind that you want to see in that budget as we enter this budget season?
Well, I want to see the same things we see every year. Complete thoughtfulness by the department heads, and I anticipate that is going to be a fact. They go through their budgets and come before the Finance Committee and explain why they asked for what they requested. And then we go through line by line and carefully consider the items on the capital improvement list. You know, we try to separate out the wants from the needs and try to figure out where we can accommodate them, if not this year, maybe next year.
Going to talk a little bit more with Menominee Mayor Gene Stegeman when we come back here on Our Town, here on Hometown Radio, 103.7 FM and 1340 WAGN. Mayor Stegeman, of course, just going through some of the topics in this year's State of the City Address. Stick around. It's Our Town. I'm Ken Connors. I'm joined today by Menominee Mayor Gene Stegeman. Mayor Stegeman gave us her State of the City address earlier in the show today, and now we're getting a little more in-depth on some of the topics that she covered in her speech. I wanted to ask you a little bit about 14th Avenue, if I could, Your Honor. 14th Ave, seen plenty of improvements on that stretch of roadway here over the past few years. I'm sure a lot of residents out there, though, are wondering, will it be completed at this point? I know we stopped around 21st Street or so.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you said in your speech, too, it sounds like we're really just kind of waiting to make sure that we have the funding for those underground infrastructure improvements.
Yes. The city engineer and the city manager continue to explore as many different avenues as they can for grants and funding. But of course, I think everyone would agree that it makes very little sense to do beautiful work on the road surface while keeping ancient infrastructure. So that is the hang up right there. And we really don't want to borrow an inordinate amount of money. You know, we need to save that capacity. I think that we're going to continue to work on it, and I'm hoping to see something within the span of people's patience.
Of course, when we talk about those underground infrastructure improvements, that all ties into the water rate study, the water rate increase, and the wastewater increase here, because the funds that are going to be raised for that can be used for some of those underground improvements that would be necessary to continue 14th Ave, possibly.
Well, we absolutely need to have a fund balance in order to replace aging pipe underground. It doesn't make any sense to replace the street portion and not have solid infrastructure in place. And a fine example of why that is so necessary is in the 13th Street 26th Avenue to 30th Avenue replacement that was done in conjunction with MDOT. That was part of the detour when we did US 41. And you can see that by not replacing that harsh winter we had last year, we had 3 main breaks in a 4-block area where there is none to the south.
We talked a little bit about economic development in your State of the City address. You mentioned things like the work going on at Anchor Coupling. Of course, Lloyd House 1 finished in downtown Menominee, working on Lloyd House 2, trying to procure some of the funding necessary for that one. Something we haven't heard so much about I was wondering if you could give me just a little insight on, was the theater building. Now, this is the big building here behind the Lloyd House in Menominee, the new Lloyd Apartments. It looks like there's activity going on there.
Yes. Ibuthentech, that Chuck Selesky, repurposed the Shaver building, the Shaver garage, and in last year's State of the City, I said that was one of the buildings that I would not have predicted to be repurposed and rehabilitated, and it looks absolutely fabulous for anybody who's gone down 2nd Street. Right across the street is the theater and that small accessory building that looks like it is cinder block in nature. Ibuthentech is going to use the Lloyd Theater as warehouse with very little in the way of changes to the exterior of the building. It has already passed the Historic District Commission committee. They've given it their seal of approval, and I'm sure if the Shaver garage is any indication, this is going to be a beautiful repurposing of these 2 buildings. As we sort of wrap up here, I think it's safe to say that if you take a look and a listen to your State of the City address, you've got a pretty positive outlook for what's been going on and what's coming for the city of Menominee. Well, absolutely. If you look at the things we've accomplished over the last few years, we have far more positive than negative. The Lloyd building, the marina dredging, street construction, we have done a number of really wonderful things. And I would just hope that our residents continue to have faith in me and in our council and our very capable department heads and city staff as we move forward into 2015.
Menominee Mayor Jean Stegeman looking forward to another great year for her city. I want to thank you for being my guest here today and sharing your thoughts on what's going on in Menominee.
Thank you for inviting me.
You've been listening to Our Town here on Hometown Radio, 103.7 FM and 1340 WAGN. I'm Ken Connors. Thank you for tuning in today. I'll be sure to see you again next week.